What up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of God is Laughing at Us, the podcast. And it's been a long time. Shouldn't have left you without a strong pod to ride, to work out, to study, to read, to whatever it is that you do while you're listening to this pod. I'm back. And you could probably wonder where I've been, but kind of like I alluded to before, I disappeared on y'all. You know, me and wifey celebrated our anniversary, so we were on a cruise. Um, Being on a boat meant that I largely disconnected, and then, of course, returning from that, I was immediately thrown back into all things work. So I just didn't wanna rush into sitting down and recording and anything, not that I couldn't have, not that the means weren't there for me to do so, but, rest and relaxation is necessary. But, I'll probably touch a little bit more on what's been going on lately. But I want to kind of give y'all a little bit of insight to something that this time away has brought to my attention. So I don't know if I've ever told this story in this way or anything like that. So as you know, I speak to me and my wife celebrating an anniversary, but I'm sure said this before. Anyone who knows me personally, I assume that you know this, but I have been divorced. So I so in that experience, in the things that occurred at that time in my life, there were some lessons taught to me. There were some things that I came to realize about myself. There was something that was brought to the forefront through that time, and we're speaking now, something that happened more or less in 2020, that some counseling spiritually, I got hooked up with counseling in my church. We're also seeing like a certified therapist or what have you. The thing that was brought to my attention is I had a representative. That's what I'm going to call it. Like there was me, but then there was my representative, the version of me that most people knew, including those, or especially those closest to me. They knew my representative. They knew. I don't know if the representative necessarily had a name because the representative showed up different in every room. So there was like just how I showed up, and it wasn't. And I'm sure some of y'all have heard this term before, but the representative was always on the first date behavior. My representative was always on that job interview energy, that every conversation, that every situation, that every encounter, that it just felt buttoned up. It just felt together. It just felt like, oh, yeah, Anthony or Tony or Shine in some rooms. That I don't know if I told that story, but whatever. But just in different spaces, different environments, like there was just a version of me that kind of melted into whatever the room needed to be, or so I thought. So even with the little bit of like I have a conviction on things from God, that conviction didn't stop me from surveying the room and trying to be what I thought the room required of me. So it's almost like whenever I stepped into a room, whenever I was encountered by people, it's almost like something in me just became like coming to America, what's her name? Princess Imani. And I don't know, you remember like when Prince Hakeem approached her and she's like, whatever you like. My food is whatever your favorite food is. My experience is whatever your experience is. Like, hey, like, I like whatever you like. You like baseball? Me too. You played baseball? Me too. You played football? Well, I was once approached to do it, but I didn't. And, just all these different things that it's like whatever it was, I was able to fit into the conversation in a way that wasn't necessarily false. Because, it's not like I was like outright lying or anything to anybody. But it's like, as much as I didn't necessarily come across as someone who cared super deeply, it was this thing that it's like, okay, the easiest way for me to be accepted is to just kind of be like them. And that obviously wasn't like healthy. That wasn't necessarily productive, but it was. It's like in a lot of ways, it was just like every conversation operated with a filter. And I guess that's the best way to put it. That the me hearing something, the me like, "Oh, okay, I guess I gotta respond to what's being said," and it coming out of my mouth all came with, like, a filter, and my filter was strong. Like, that filter was so strong that I should've listened to what Ecclesiastes 3:7 says. Ecclesiastes 3 talks about to everything there's a season and a time to every purpose. When 3:7 really talks about a time to keep silent. My representative and my filter didn't let me be quiet. The representative just tried to fit in. So all of that just kind of brought me to this place of like, okay, so we're dealing with the representative. But one of the things that the representative kind of mastered in a sense, and I use the word mastered very loosely. But one of the things that I mastered as that representative is the continued, consistent appearance of being unbothered. Like nothing bothered me. I was unmesswittable, so to speak. That, you couldn't get to me, that like nothing in life will ever see me sweat. And it only built and it was only just more and more and more pronounced throughout different situations in life. Like, like in my career, I always like I gotta be the one to hold it together. I always gotta be the one that just doesn't seem to be bothered. I mean, in my first marriage, it's like, no, we gotta everything gotta look good here, even when it isn't. Everybody gotta see me happy, even though I'm battling depression. Everybody gotta see me at my strongest. That then it's like just going through all of these things, all of these situations. Because I now have a realization that I was carrying things that were not for me to carry. That I was trying to exude peace without having inner peace. The type of peace that comes from prayer, the peace that surpasses all understanding when I cast my cares upon Him. With the type of peace that can't be earned or bought, or that can't be faked. That so it was a lot of things that were internal. There were a lot of things happening. There was a lot of things just ongoing that, for whatever reason, along the way, that just wasn't coming together the way that I needed it to come together. And a lot of that, admittedly, if I'm keeping it a buck, a stack, a mill, or whatever, a lot of that was just me. It was no one asking me to be anything. It was no one seeking me to be anything. It was me looking at the situation and said, "This is the version of me that this situation requires." And don't get it twisted. There's a healthy version of that. Because because in turn, and it's a perverted thing, it's a perverted version of the healthy version. Because the healthy version shows up, for instance, in a workplace or when I'm serving. When my heart is in it, when my mind is in it, when I have a level of expertise in terms of what's going on around me, that I am able to see what the situation needs, Like, I am able to see what like, if I'm serving with the youth department at my church, like, if I'm in the youth ministry, I can kinda look around and say, "Okay, we need this right now. Let me step in. Let me plug in." If I'm at work, like, even though I'm the pharmacist and there's a lot of things that are technically not my job to do, I recognize that, okay, we're short staffed, so we're going to need a little bit more in this area. So let me support this area. Or, hey, this thing is getting out of order, or we're getting behind in this area. So even though it's not necessarily my job, I know how to step in and do it. But then in other rooms throughout my life, that very thing got perverted into, oh, I'm just going to try to identify with this conversation or what this person needs me to be, and I'll show up that way. That if I'm, so it's like literally always being on that first date type of thing, always being in that job interview where I'm just like I'm so upright, I'm so together, I'm so aware. Real talk, it was just exhausting. But this is the thing with the representative. When I was going through the divorce, the separation, everything leading up to that when I'm sitting in counseling and therapy and whatnot, I realized that the representative had to die. That the representative was not something that I needed to heal, but the representative was something that I needed to kill. Like that will preach by itself. There are things that we need to kill that we are instead trying to heal. And for the longest time, I kept feeding and breathing life into something that needed to die in my own life. I had the representative that was there, that was more present in rooms and environments than the actual me could ever be at that time. There was just a lot of spaces and a lot of places that were being filled by someone who looked like me, who sounded like me, but that wasn't the real me. It was a version of me. It wasn't a it wasn't necessarily a fake me, it just wasn't the honest way I was made and designed me. So, yeah, y'all gonna have to deal with this reference. Bear with me. So, how many of y'all have seen How High? I mean, I'm imagining that y'all just raising y'all hands on the other side of the camera, but whatever the case may be, in that movie, Method Man's character had a homeboy, Ivory. Ivory had a date with a young lady in this movie, and in that movie, I guess they met online or something like that, but he fed her a bunch of lines, and, he was presenting his representative, so when she pulled up, he shows up with the weed, like, with the installed, dreads, this, that, and the third, and then he died. And it's the type of death that I like to believe that my representative died, or the type of death that in that moment that I thought my representative was dying. Like homie got set on fire, fell out the window, somehow survived the fire and the falling out of the window, but then got ran over by a bus. That's the type of death that I believe my representative died in 2020. But as much as my representative died, I didn't realize that pride survived. And this is the thing, because all of this, it takes me back to, you could think about 1 Samuel 16:7. Like God looks at the outer I'm sorry, man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks at the inner. So even as there was the different things going on the outside of me, the things that I was learning to deal with better on the outside in terms of how I spoke to people and how I showed up in rooms and whatnot, that I just showed up all me all the time. That I showed up all me all the time. God was still working and working and working on the thing that was left on the inside of me. that he's still working and working and working on the thing that was inside of me. That I really only had a true revelation of what was working and working and working on the inside of me, of all places, on my cruise. Put a pin in that. I'll come back to it. Because this is the thing. Like I said, the representative part of that was being the coolest person in the room, and not cool as like the Fonzie leather jacket. Like I'm just like laid back to the nine type of person. But no, being the coolest person in the sense of like nothing bothers me. I'm unflappable. You ain't gonna see me sweat. You're not gonna see me trip about anything. That that if there's ever anybody that's gonna be sleep on the boat in the middle of chaos, it'd be me. That pretty much is like if I was one of the 12 disciples, I would have saw Jesus sleeping on the boat. I'm like, man, if he's asleep, man, I'm going to sleep too. It's like whatever. Like I'll worry. I'll like if he ain't worried, neither am I. As a matter of fact, I would have almost been in competition. Knowing me, I would have been in competition. Like, no, there's no way that I know who Jesus is, but there's no way that Jesus is gonna be the most relaxed, calm person in on this boat. Hey, Jesus, let me get some of that pillow. It's all about. But there was like something about like just the calmness, calm, cool, collected, the measure, the nonchalance, like being hard to read, being unshakable, all of those things. And it's weird. I don't even say weird, but it's funny because it's like I gave so much credit to that. That I thought that that's what people needed around me. That I'm like in a pharmacy, I'm like, man, it's like I can't be the person that freak out because I'm the head, I'm the leader. That if I start freaking out, then everybody around me, they gonna freak out too. That everybody, if I start tripping, that everybody around me, they gonna trip. That so we can't do that. We can't have that. We can't be out here like that. So, to the best of my ability, I just avoided doing it. But it's just a reminder. It's like looking like peace ain't the same thing as having peace. And Jesus said, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you, but not as the world gives." So there was a version of worldly peace that I was good at projecting, but it wasn't the peace that Jesus left with us. The peace that shows up as a fruit of the spirit that was actually operating in me. So as steady as I looked, as collected as I looked, as put together as I appeared, there was still like just the carrying of the stress. There was the carrying of the emotions. There was the carrying of the depression. There was the carrying of the pressure. There was just the weight of the world. So much so that I felt so much weight that I ended up getting this tattoo that I had to completely pray over and renounce my agreement over it because, being if you're familiar with Atlas, the I won't call the lowercase G Greek god that represents, like, the weight, like, he carries the weight of the world on his shoulder, like, that was me. That in the effort to, like, look like I had it together, I was carrying a lot of unnecessary weight, and it was just pressure. It was a lot. Like, it was so I'm carrying all of this stuff, and I look like I'm peaceful. It looks like, like, in conversations I've had with my wife even recently, it's like, "Oh, you just" like, I would know that you're bothered because you just carry things so well. And it's like almost just it's like something innate, but I think that in times that when pride has gone unchecked in my life, that innate thing to carry things well, so to speak, to not be moved by the things around me, will be met by turmoil and a lot of pressure that doesn't have any part or any place in my life, for real. Because it's like I really just wanted to be in this place of like, again, like I couldn't let them see me sweat. Like I'm not rattled. I'm not angry, but there's nothing that you can say to me that's gonna move me off my square. There's nothing that you gonna say that's gonna make me as emotionally invested in this conversation as you. Like if you care, I care less. If you don't care, I care even less. Whatever you feel is like whatever we doing. I'm not going to extra care, and I'm not going to be caught caring more than you. I'm not going to be caught being more involved in these situations than you. I'm just not going to be caught in that. So it's like I'm not going to just spring any pressure leaks. It's like pressure, like they say pressure builds pipe. I'm sorry, pressure either creates diamonds or it bursts pipes. Where as far as I'm concerned, it's like I was so clenched up that when I went to the bathroom, I just produced diamonds. That's how well I thought I was under pressure, handling the pressure. Internally, there was this image created and this image consistently projected that had this full on like pipe spurs. The pipes were bursting on the inside. But y'all, whoever y'all are in this story, wasn't about to know that. Like that just wasn't about to be something made apparent. That wasn't about to be something made known. So it's like it was heavy into like I'm not gonna let y'all see me bothered. I'm not gonna get hot. Like I'm going to do my best to be. So I get this term from a song. I don't even remember who made it. If I thought hard enough, I'll probably remember. So, for the sake of this podcast, we're going to call the song "Unmesswittable," and that's how I moved. I'm like, I ain't gonna be mess with. I'm not one to be messed with. I'm not one to be moved by whatever it is you think there is or whatever you're trying to move me with. And in turn, it ends up sounding super strong. It looks so mature. It's just like, oh my God, look at you. It's like because it couldn't be me. It's like I would never. It's like I'm like man. It's like you just do so well in these situations. It's like and it's like nah. You wanna know what it really is? Like the unmessable thing, or at least in my life, it was a mask. Plain and simple. And not a Stanley Ipkiss type mask that just like brought out like my wildest desires. Like no, it was the type of mask that prevented the anxiousness and the unrest that was sitting inside of me from being presented to other people. It was something that it was the type of mask that allowed me to go onto the stage and give like the best performance that I could so that no one would ever know what was truly going on with me. So it's like it's not something that was the type of peace or was not a reflection of the type of peace that the fruit of the spirit talks about in Galatians 5. It wasn't something that was being produced by God in me. It was something that I was acting my way through. It was something that I was faking to an extent, but it wasn't something that was truly ingrained in who I was. It was just something being presented because in all of that. So I mentioned that on my cruise, got a little bit I got a reminder of, like, how I have been so good at just, like, appearing bothered unbothered, appearing healed, and just having, like, great resolve over all of these different situations that have happened and occurred in my life, right? But on my cruise, I had a real life, "You know what? Forget it. I'm bothered." type of moment. And I think it was one of the most honest moments I've had because it was a very human moment. And it was also a moment I ultimately mishandled because I let my emotions begin to run the show in this situation. Imma give y'all the short version because I feel like the long version is something that for me and my wife to sit side by side and talk to y'all about or whoever. But we're on a boat. Our first port day gets canceled because of weather. We are sitting there, days pass, like we have a port our first port day finally coming up. But because we've been on the boat, because of the tension, because of things that have occurred in in our coming together, um, because of honestly some of the masks that I had I had yet to shed in this life. We're having a conversation, and the conversation is just getting progressively more. I don't know if heated is the word, but it's just getting progressively more tense. One of those like, wait a minute, we on vacation. What is going on here? That we're asking that questions are being asked. That it's just like, what is happening here? That now and then it's just getting to a point that it's like being led by emotion, and then it's just like I got so bothered that it's almost like not even almost, but for I would say I ain't got an exact amount of time on it, but let's call it 15 seconds. For 15 seconds, I lost all sense of self, and I said something to my wife that it took me 2 seconds to be like, "Whoa, that's crazy." Like, that's crazy that that just came out of my mouth right now, and I had to immediately apologize. But, of course, in that moment, that apology didn't understandably so, it's like I crossed the line that I knew that I didn't just cross the line with her, but I crossed the line with myself, honestly. And in that, it was like, that is so crazy. And after that, it's like it just led me to, like, really have to sit with some things, 'cause it's like you get to a place of, like, having to, like, really look at it, and it's like, "Okay, what is giving room to all of this?" It's like, what offense was I carrying? What tiredness? What level of inconvenience was I holding on to? What level of irritation and agitation was I just ignoring and pushing to the side? Like, what was really happening in those moments? Because it wasn't even a reflection of just her, and then it's kind of to, like, the larger I guess the larger point that I'm making here, the larger testimony, so to speak, that I'm sharing here, the things that God has delivered me from, that and that He's still perfecting in me, that His work is continuing in me with, that I really had to sit and realize that it's like I had so much of myself wrapped into looking like I'm not bothered. And it wasn't entirely an intentional thing. It was just a passive, unspoken background thing. It was like one of those apps that run on your phone in the background. Like, it's not actively doing anything, but it's always on. That I was holding on to and deeply affected by things. And for a moment, like in this particular moment, like, she became the target that I never meant for her to be. And I mean, and needless to say, like, the next day, thankfully, we were able to come together and make things right, get it together, and then really enjoy the rest of that cruise, and and really enjoy, and I think we've been in a better place of just enjoying each other since then, I mean, y'all have full permission to ask her for her opinion, because don't just take it from me. Because of course, Imma say like, "Oh, yeah, it's all good," but I believe that Mrs. Heath feels the same. But in confronting that unmesswittable situation, in navigating the untouchable type of thing, the facade of untouchable that I had been walking in, there are some things that I had to begin to, like, really ask myself, and these are some things that takes a little bit of, and not just swallowing pride, but it's like realizing that the word says, "Humble thyself, lest ye be humbled," and because I had failed previously to humble myself in this area, I got hit with a huge slice of humility. So I just had to, like, ask, like, why does it bother me for other people to see me bothered? Like, why does it feel like a failure on my end as someone sees me a little bit in the mood? Like, like, why did I treat being hard to read as a badge of healing? Why did I look at nonchalance as a indicator that I'm actually at peace? And why did I treat stoicism as a marker of peace? Like, I had to ask myself all of these questions. I had to come to grips with this. Like, I was placing the marker, or I was placing the standard on things that reflected my upbringing, that reflected the people I grew around with, that reflected what I was told manhood was, more than I was standing on what the word says. Like, remembering that in Psalm 34, it says that the Lord is near to those who have a broken heart. That or and, he is near those who are crushed in spirit. And I think the beautiful thing is like, no, that's not saying stay there, but it's like, but part of the human experience is realizing that at some point, you very well may end up there. And when you do, let God be close to you. Like, there was times and there was places that I just wouldn't let God close to me. That even though he knew all, even though he realizes all, even though he recognizes all, I just was not allowing him to be close to me in that area. Like, I had yet to surrender my emotions to him fully. I surrendered everything else in my life, but I had yet to truly surrender and tap out on my emotional output. It's like I just had to really get to a place of honesty. And mind you, like, going back a couple weeks before I legit, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, I just skipped recording because I wasn't dealing with things all the way. Like, I was acknowledging my emotions, I was being present in my emotion, but I would bring my emotion to God, and it's almost like I would leave the emotion at his footstep, but I wouldn't enter in the reconciliation part of it. I wouldn't enter into the part of it where he wasn't just healing me of emotion, that he was not just healing the parts of me that were dealing with things, he was just healing the things that I was struggling with, but that I was not giving the space for him to complete the work, to advance the work. That I was like, okay, I'll leave this here and we're good. But it's like I was leaving it there and taking pieces of it with me. Like, I wasn't leaving it at the altar in a way that allowed his all consuming fire to take it out. That I left it there, but I took some with me. And what was taken with me often looks like pride. 'Cause it's like you just get to that place of, like, again, like, I was calling control and distance. I was controlling calling, like, kind of like emotional suppression, like, and having my guard up a little bit. I was calling, like, the nonchalance and just, like, the clean presentation. I was calling those things peace, but it wasn't the peace that in Philippians 4, 6, and 7 that be anxious for nothing. Pray about everything with thanksgiving and supplication. Make your requests known unto God. So the peace that surpasses all understanding will guard your heart. That peace was not coming to pass. That peace wasn't entering my life. That peace wasn't keeping me. That peace wasn't there. It's like that peace wasn't ruling in my heart as the peace of God, that is. The peace of God was not ruling my heart like Colossians 3:15 says. And when we speak of the peace of God ruling your heart, it's not just peace that just makes me look calm. It's not just peace that makes me look like I have it together. It's the peace that is like it has to rule. The peace has to have authority. The peace is not just like a vibe. The peace is not just like, oh, okay, like, I'm with it until I'm not. The peace is not just something that's just going to like guard or guide my life when it's convenient. Like it governs. It has I submit to it. It leads me. It informs how I speak to other people. It gives permission to me to actually freely express myself because the peace comes with trust. The peace comes with safety. The peace allows me to bring my guard down because it's like because you know how it is. It's like if you're there's a time to war and there's a time for peace. When you're at war, build the walls. When you're at war, protect everything, guard your heart. But the best, but it's important to recognize and realize who you are at war with. If you at war with the enemy, raise up a standard against them. But with God, you're at peace, or you should be. And that should allow you to let the walls down. Because if we being real, God knows you. He already knows you. He knows your inner parts. He knew he knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. Like he knows like he can number every hair on your head or every hair that was on your head. Like he can number all of those things. He knows all of these things. So it's like it's being able to recognize ultimately when we're talking about peace, is my peace fruit or is my peace performance? Because my peace is the fruit of the spirit, then that is going to stand up against the most uncomfortable and the most tense situations. And my peace is a performance. I am going to be worn out and dragged out and not want to deal with anything or anybody at the end of the day. It's like when we're talking about joy and happiness. Joy, just like peace, it's not a reflection of it's not always a reflection of my circumstances. Happiness is, comfort might be, but but comfort ain't peace. Joy ain't happiness. Know that those things are not the same thing. And that's just something that I had to constantly and consistently battle with and recognize that this is what it is. And all of that, it's like just that, like I told you with the trip and everything like that. Like I told you, just kind of like having a couple weeks to just rest, to relax, to take a vacation, to be away from everything, to disconnect, to just enjoy my wife, to enjoy my life, to enjoy the things that God has been blessing me with. It also left space for God to expose me to myself. And it wasn't about shame. God wasn't trying to it's like not shame, 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 tisk, 'cause God doesn't operate in shaming. When God brings something to your opinion when God brings something to you, like when God makes the secret thing known to you, he's giving you an opportunity to be healed and free in that area. Because if I try to call myself calm, but be guarded, if I try to say I'm just keeping my emotions private, but really I'm hiding behind my lack of emotion, it's what David. Look, I gotta crack this open for this. So Psalm 139. I know it feels so extra when I'm sitting here and I actually open my actual Bible, but bear with me. But one Psalm 139 verses 23 and 24. And this is where I was. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my anxieties and see if there is any wicked way in me and lead me in the way everlasting. That, yeah, like I needed to be like that. I needed him to search me. And once he searched me, I needed him to show me what was going on in me, like what would cause me to say something like I said to my wife. I needed him to show me what would cause me to go and put on this performance of having it together all day at work and then come home and just like I don't want to. That it's like I don't want to do anything. I don't want to be anywhere. That that I'm in situations like with that food don't taste the same. That God, it sounds so crazy, but it was really how I felt. Like food didn't taste the same. Like like I ain't want the things that I used to want. And now, mind you, like some of the things that I no longer want that I didn't used to want, that's because God is working in me. But there's things that also just that I just like, whatever. I just stopped caring about the things that actually meant something to me. And I think and God cares about what we want in our hearts. He cares about the things that excite us. And if you don't think he does, then you need to spend some more time with him. I'ma just leave that part at that. But over time, once I stopped trying to come to God and present my control as a replacement to his peace, as a replacement to his providence, when I tried to conceal things instead of walking in maturity, when I try to be unreadable even in his presence, when again, he knows me inside out. God probably knows things about me. Now I'm gonna say probably. God knows things about me that I either don't remember or will just never discover. It's like there's some deep things that how can I come to him in realness if I can't even come to myself? Or if I can't even present myself in complete realness. Because I heard, I believe, Pastor Michael Todd say this, and this is something that really sticks with me. But God will not bless who I pretend to be. He's not going to honor my representative. He's not going to honor the unmesswittable mask that I've worn. He's not going to honor the calm the calm presentation, even though there's a storm on the inside of me. Because all of those things, it may survive a room, a conversation, or even a season. But none of that is going to make it that like the presentation isn't going to make it into eternity. That when I'm standing there and God is judging my life against against itself, like like when I'm testifying my life before Him, none of those things that hid behind the mask are going to stand. All of that is going to burn up. All of that is vapor. So what am I holding on to? Like I gotta just be like, was it Frozen? Don't ask me names right now, but Frozen. I just gotta let these things go. And like, I cast my cares upon him for he cares about me. And like, and casting is not I'm visual. So it's like casting isn't just like this like, oh here. Like no, it's like throwing that thing. It's like throwing it as far away from myself as possible. But it's just remembering that, like, God told Paul that his strength is made perfect in weakness. So I will so instead of hiding my humanity, I will boast in the things that are representative of who he made me to be. I will boast in my weakness, for his grace is sufficient and his strength is made perfect in my weakness. My greatest strength is realizing that I am weak, but that I have a God that can pick me up. So there's no need for me to perform peace. There's no need for me to perform strength. There's no need for me to perform having it together. I could just let God, I can let him produce all of that in me. Because again, if I humble myself before God, he will lift me up. So let me humble myself before him. Let me humble myself before others. Not saying that I ain't nothing. Like God made me, like the word says, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. So I don't have to like speak low of myself. But let me also know that it's like no matter how much I think I know, no matter how much I think I experience, I ain't got it. Plain and simple. So I say all of that to say that I'm no longer trying to look like peace. I just want to have the peace of God. I don't want to have all of these things masquerading. I just I don't want to masquerade. I don't want to be the chief at a masquerade ball with the flashiest mask, or with the heaviest mask, or the biggest mask, or the most mask. Like no, I just want the truth of God, the peace of like the truth of God to come and flow through me. And I don't want to just look like I'm at peace. I want to actually be at peace. And I pray that God covers you and that he blesses you. For anyone who has been hiding behind a mask, in the name of Jesus, Lord, we just pray that each and every person, that each and every chain is broken, that each and every mask is broke, it is shed and broken, Lord, that each and every person, Lord, that may be sitting in this place, that may be listening to this podcast, Lord, that wherever they are, whatever their experience is, Lord, that the things that they feel like they cannot expose to others, Lord, that they realize, Lord, that your strength is made perfect in their weakness, Lord. So, Lord, allow them to not boast because they are weak, Lord, but let them boast because you are strong, Lord, that you fill in the gaps that you have by design, understood the places that we cannot do things, and that you have already made provisions for us in those areas, Lord. That you are Jireh, Lord. That none of us has the title, that none of us have the ability to provide the way that you do, that none of us have the ability to love the way that you do, that none of us can be present the way that you are, Lord. So let us just yield our emotion. Let us yield control. Let us yield all of these things to you in the name of Jesus. So, Lord, if there's anything that you desire to do in our hearts, Lord, have your way. Thank you in the name of Jesus. Amen. So, I could probably sit here and talk about this for hours on end, but I really pray that someone listening will listen to this and begin to experience the freedom that I have been granted over these last couple weeks. That the things that challenged me, that the things that the enemy tried to use to destroy me, that God has turned it around for my good. That what was meant for evil, what was meant for harm, what was meant for my destruction, that God said, nah, we're going to make this work for Anthony's good, and that there is someone listening that is going to work out for them. So on that note, I am Anthony Nathan Heath the second. This has been God is Laughing at Us, the podcast. I love y'all. Peace.